Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I'm back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I've received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you're currently taking, not taking, considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's No Filter Q&A with question number 1. Nick, how often do you recommend changing up your workouts? Good question. So here's the thing. When it comes to changing up your workouts, what I usually do for my own workouts, I really just work on intuition. So I go by how I feel, right? Like for example, if I'm doing a shoulder workout, I'm noticing that I'm having some problems in my rhomboid or maybe my left trap. I might substitute cable rear delt raises and I might throw in some dumbbell rear delt raises, or I might take out some barbell upright rows and throw in some rope upright rows, right? I'll still work the muscle groups, but I'll do different exercises. So maybe instead of doing a barbell military press, I'll do a dumbbell shoulder press, right? So I'm still working the anterior deltoid, just with a different exercise. But as far as how often I do that, really just go on intuition. It's just basically how I feel. And I do the same thing with my clients. Like I'll switch up the workout program every once in a while. Maybe just because I feel like they're not responding to the program anymore. Or I just feel like, you know what, it's actually time just to change up the routine a little bit because we don't want to overuse those muscles in certain planes of motion, right? So as I mentioned in the shoulder workout, for example, let's say I'm giving someone standing dumbbell lateral raises for week in, week out for like, say, 6 to 8 weeks. I might switch that up for some cable lateral raises, right? Just to switch up the plane of motion slightly. Still working the same muscle group, different range of motion, different plane of motion. Another thing you can do too is rather than change up your exercises, is just change up the sequence of your exercises. So I'll do that with some clients too. Like I'll take someone through a leg workout. One workout, I'll start them with barbell back squats. The next leg workout we do the following week, I might end the workout with barbell back squats. So I'm constantly switching things up just to not necessarily shock the body, but just to add some variation and just to also make sure that we don't become stagnant, right? Because the body is very smart, right? So if we're not challenging the body knows what to expect, sorry, it's not going to respond. It's not going to grow. So it is good to change up your routine from time to time. But as I've said in the past, that doesn't mean you have to change it up every single time, right? You don't have to constantly keep trying to reinvent the wheel. You can still stick to the basic exercises like squats, deadlifts, bench press. We know these work, right? Again, I'm not a big fan of deadlifts, as most people know, but for those people that like to include them in the workout program, they do offer some benefits. Um, but again, it's not necessarily changing up your whole routine. Okay. It's just figuring out, hey, am I responding anymore to this routine? If you're no longer responding to the routine, then it's time to change things up. But that could be changing up the sequence. It could just be taking out 1 or 2 exercises. It could be changing up your rep scheme. It could be adding in drop sets, supersets, giant sets, circuit training. So there's all different types of ways to change up your workout routine without making a complete 180 and taking out all the exercises and putting in all new exercises. A good way to do that, work with an experienced coach that can design a customized training program for you, because that can offer a lot of benefits that you yourself might not see, right? So, as far as changing up your workout routine, I'm not someone who says you have to constantly change up your workout routine. Personally, myself, if I'm finding a routine that's working really well for me, I stick with it. And then when I see I'm no longer progressing, I'm no longer noticing results with my physique, or I'm starting to feel, maybe overuse of certain muscle groups, then I'll switch up the exercises. So I'll switch up the plane of motion and also the range of motion. All right, next question. Nick, where do you buy your supplements from stores? From store. Oh, sorry. Nick, where do you buy your supplements? Stores like Popeyes and Body Energy have become really expensive since COVID. Yeah, so here in Vancouver, well, I think in most places around the world, the supplement stores are really overpriced. Okay. And, in their defense, they have to pay their rent, right? Whereas if you're shopping online, you're just really buying things, your supplements from a big warehouse, right? So the rent's a lot lower and therefore the costs are a lot lower. So what I usually advise my clients to do are 2 places they can shop for supplements. One is Costco. Costco works really well, especially for things like protein powder. Find Costco is a lot cheaper than your average supplement store. Like here in Vancouver, we've got the Body Energy and we also have Popeyes. There's GNCs, but Costco is much cheaper and you will get a good quality whey isolate at Costco. They sell it. Okay. And it's honestly, it's like 3/4 of the price. So that's one place you can go. For your supplements, believe it or not, sometimes Amazon's actually a good place to buy your supplements. You have to be careful though, because it's like anything. It depends on what you're buying. For myself personally, most of my vitamins and my minerals I buy from Amazon. And then when it comes to like my pre-workouts and my BCA powders, I'll usually buy them online through either a website called supplementsource.ca or canadasupplements.ca. Both those websites work well. But I always tell clients to do is go to both and compare prices, because sometimes one will have a sale, the other one won't have the sale. So always good to shop around. Another thing too is, a lot of people don't know this, is that when you're buying things like protein powders and BCA powders, a lot of times the online stores will give massive discounts on products that expire, let's say, in 30 to 60 days. I'll buy those products, even if I'm not going to use them in 30 or 60 days. They don't really go bad. Okay. And a lot of people don't realize this. So you can buy protein powder just because the protein powder says it expires, we're in April. Let's say the protein powder says it expires May 30th. I'd still buy it and continue to use it into June, July, August. It's fine. Okay. It's just the expiration date is there for a reason, but it's not there because all of a sudden the protein powder will go bad. Now, if the protein powder is, says it expires in 2020 and now we're in 2024, we probably shouldn't have it. Okay. But if it's something that's expiring this year and you're going to buy it, I would say take it, because a lot of times you get it for like 60% off. So that's where I get a lot of my BCA powders from. I'll go to the online stores and I'll buy something that's going to expire in 30 to 60 days and it's fine. Okay, there's no problems with it. It tastes the exact same. Okay, I wouldn't recommend doing that with food. I'm just saying with your powders, pre-workouts, BCA powders, whey isolate powders, I see no problem in doing that. Okay, it really doesn't go bad. Like I said, though, if something's got 5 years old or something, probably don't want to be taking that. No, just because you might get a little sick, but you're not going to die from it. Okay. So that's what I'd recommend doing is go to places like Costco. Okay. If you're a Costco member, if you're not a Costco member, look for your vitamins and minerals on places like Amazon. And then those two websites I recommend, supplementsource.ca or canadasupplements.ca. There's also another website, I believe it's called Protein Canada, and they sell in bulk. So you can buy like 20-pound bags of whey isolate from there as well. So those are 3 websites that you can go to, along with Amazon and Costco. And yeah, unfortunately, places like GNC, Popeyes, Body Energy, they're really overpriced. So if you're on a budget, I would not advise you to be picking up your supplements at those stores. Next question. Nick, I think I eat healthy, but why can't I seem to lose weight? Okay, so when it comes to losing weight, even if you are eating healthy, you have to remember a lot of healthy foods are very calorically dense. Let's say avocados. Avocados are really healthy for you, but they're also very calorically dense. Natural peanut butter, really healthy for you, but it's also calorically dense. So if you're trying to lose weight, you need to be in somewhat of a caloric deficit. So if you're consuming a lot of these healthy foods that are high in calories, you're going to be in a caloric surplus, and therefore it's going to be very difficult for you to lose the weight. Okay. This is where it comes into making sure you are doing weight training, though, in addition to your cardiovascular exercise, because the more muscle you have, the more food you can eat, right? And I've talked about this in the past before, is that the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn in the rest of the state. So therefore, you can also consume more calories, right? So that's why it's beneficial to include weight training into your fat loss program, okay? So everyone has their definition of what's healthy too, right? There's a lot of these so-called healthy foods out there that really aren't that healthy. So, but let's say you are eating a really clean whole foods diet. You still have to watch your macronutrients to an extent. You don't want to be in high carbs, high fats, and then low proteins, right? So if you're trying to lose weight, what I typically recommend people do is follow a caloric or a macronutrient rotation program, right? Where they're changing their macronutrients on a week-to-week basis. That will continuously keep the metabolism guessing and therefore burning more calories, okay? So one week you might be on a very high carb, low fat diet. The following week you could be on a high fat, low carb diet, right? Typically, I recommend keeping protein levels about the same. But as far as rotating your fats and carbs, I find that to be incredibly beneficial when it comes to losing weight, okay? So just remember that the healthy foods out there, there's still calories in them, right? I mean, if you are consuming, let's say, even chicken breast, which is full of protein, but if you're consuming 50, 60 ounces of chicken breast a day, that's a lot of calories. So you'll be in a caloric surplus. It will be difficult for you to lose weight. So you have to be in somewhat of a caloric deficit in addition to weight training, in addition to cardiovascular activity, that will help you get down in weight. Okay. I've looked at a lot of people's diets over the years, even people who eat clean. And, they eat a lot of fruits, they eat a lot of vegetables, they have a lot of lean cuts of meat, a lot of like good healthy fats. But then when I calculate their overall caloric intake for the day, they're well over 4,000, 5,000 calories. So even though they're eating healthy, it's going to be very difficult for the body to actually burn body fat. Okay. So you even have to watch your portion sizes. That's incredibly important when you're trying to lose weight. Okay. I always tell people don't even bother trying to lose weight if you're not willing to at least, I don't say you have to weigh, and although I recommend weighing and measuring out your food, but practicing portion control, because that's the only surefire way to know that you're going to lose weight on a consistent basis if you're practicing proper portion control from a week-to-week basis. Okay. And even better if you are weighing your food and measuring your food, because if you're not, where do you know to take calories from? You don't, you're guessing. So every time I work with someone online, I always know if I'm working with someone and I say I'm doing that macronutrient rotation program, and I had them on a high fat, low carb diet, and they haven't lost any weight in a week. Well, then it's up to me to say, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to give this person more cardio and keep the calories the same, or am I going to give them the same amount of cardio and drop the calories? Am I going to increase their carbs and lower their fats? Right. So these are all things that you can do when you have all your information on record saying, okay, this is what I did this week. I didn't lose weight, so now I need to do this. If you don't have that information, what are you going to do? You don't know what to do. You're going in blindly. Okay. So you have to be strategic whenever you're going on a fat loss or muscle building program. You can't just go in there blindly, because I promise you, you will hit a plateau and then you won't know what to do from there. All right. Okay. Nick, do I need to work out to failure in order to see results? No, I don't think so. I've never been an advocate of working out to failure. I'm a firm believer in stimulating the muscle and not annihilating the muscle. That's a quote from one of the great Mr. Olympias of all time, Lee Haney. And it makes a lot of sense. You don't go into the gym to annihilate a muscle. The purpose of going to the gym is to stimulate muscle growth once you leave the gym. When you're resting, when you're hydrating, when you're eating, right? When you're sleeping, that's when the muscle grows. The muscle doesn't grow in the gym. So I don't think it's necessary to take every set to failure. I do think it's important to challenge yourself. And what I usually tell people is that you should be going at each and every set, unless it's a warm-up set, with at least 75 to 85% intensity. So I always tell clients, try to keep your rep range between that 10 to 15 reps. If you know you can easily get 15 to 20 reps on a weight, unless it's a warm-up set, the weight's too light for you. Okay. So you don't want to go too easy on yourself. But if you're barely getting, 8 or 9 reps on a weight, in my opinion, that's too heavy for you. And you're going to put a lot of stress on your joints. So I talked about this last week, is one of the ways that I've been able to stay injury free for 20 plus years is because I always train, I go to every workout and I always approach every workout methodically, right? I always say, okay, how am I feeling today? What do I need to change if I'm having a trap issue, right? Having a bicep issue. Maybe I have a strained hamstring. I have sore quads, whatever it is, I have to work around the injury, or it could just be muscle soreness. So you always have to train with intelligence. Okay. That's so important, because I see a lot of people just going in the gym and they ignore that. They're like, well, no, I just got to go to failure and I got to hit myself as hard as I can in the gym and then leave. And I'm like, listen, that's short term and you might get some results, but long term, you're not going to last because you're going to get an injury, right? So again, you have to train smart. So I would not recommend necessarily training to failure, but you do want to train hard. And training hard doesn't mean that you have to go balls to wall and you're going to pass out in the gym and this blood, sweat, and tears garbage. It just means that you're stimulating the muscle, you're exhausting it with high reps, high volume, very minimal rest periods in between sets, and then you're in and out of the gym. And I promise you that works, especially if you're a natural athlete. It works. You don't need to be in the gym for 2 hours. You don't need to be squatting 900 pounds. None of that stuff. Okay. You don't need to. You want to last in this game. So the best way to last: high reps, minimal rest periods, high volume, and in and out of the gym. When you're out of the gym, you're hydrating, you're resting, you're eating, you're sleeping. And that will help you grow. That will help you recover. And most importantly, that will help you remain injury-free. All right. Nick, do you advise your clients to take scheduled rest days or to only rest when they feel they need it? Another good question. Okay, so with my clients, most of my clients, they usually only go to the gym when they're working with me. So they don't usually train on their own. Now, if they're clients I work with online who do work on their own, I usually advise taking at least one day off a week, right? But again, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take a complete day off from exercise. If you're someone who weight trains 6 days a week, that means the seventh day you could go for a run, you can go for a walk, you can go for a swim, a bike ride. So you can do something else that's exercise. I don't think that our bodies need to take a day off from exercise unless you feel you need a break from exercise. I think our bodies crave exercise. Our bodies crave movement. Movement is good for our bodies. Our bodies were not designed to sit all day, right? Sit there, watch TV. That's not what we're designed to do. We're designed to move. So I always tell people, take a rest day if you feel you need a rest day. As far as taking a rest day from the weights, I see nothing wrong with taking 1 to 2 days off a week. Again, I've talked about this for myself personally. For 2024, the only day I've taken off from weight training was March 1st. That's it. And it's because I had a really long day on the floor. So other than that, I've been training every day with weights and I feel great. I don't have any injuries. I feel lots of energy. I don't feel overtrained. And I actually have made some good progress. So it goes to show you that as long as you're doing everything right outside the gym, I truly believe you can't overtrain. Okay. Now, if you're going into the gym and you're squatting 3 times a week, well, yeah, you're overtraining. You're doing the same thing over and over again. That doesn't make sense. But if you're putting together a properly designed training program in addition to a customized nutritional plan, you can train 7 days a week, right? Just go by how you feel. If you're feeling like your lower back is really sore one day, probably not a good idea to go train back, but maybe train chest. You could train shoulders. You could train arms. So there's other muscle groups you can train, right? So you got to listen to your body. But as far as scheduled rest days off, I personally don't take scheduled rest days. I just take a rest day off when I feel I need a rest day. I advise my clients to do the same thing. But with that said, I have a lot of people that the only time they go to the gym is when they're working with myself or one of the trainers. So their rest days are the days they don't have a scheduled workout with myself or one of the trainers. But during those so-called rest days, I usually advise them to do something that entails some type of exertion, right? And whether that, like I said, going for a walk, going for a run, bike ride, swim, something to work their cardiovascular endurance, right? Work their cardiovascular health, okay? So I don't believe in scheduled rest days. I think take a rest day when you need a rest day, listen to your body, make sure you're recovering properly and you're training intelligently. Okay. Nick, I just started lifting weights, but experience a lot of pain in my knees whenever I try to do squats and lunges. Should I take these exercises out or continue to do them even though they are hurting my knees? So if you just started lifting weights and you're experiencing pain in your knees while performing exercises like squats and lunges, it's most likely because your quadriceps and your hamstrings and your glutes are not strong enough at this time. Okay. So what's happening is when you do a squat, when you do lunges, your patella and your meniscus and your knee are taking the bulk of the pressure. Okay. Now that's very common, especially with beginners. So what I'd recommend is if you're training out of a commercial gym and you have access to machines like, say, a leg extension machine or a lying hamstring machine or even both, I would recommend warming up with those machines first because that's going to help release some synovial fluid into the joints. Now, once that synovial fluid's in the joints, your joints are going to feel a little bit more lubricated because as I mentioned in the past, synovial fluid is like WD-40 for the door, right? So it allows a little bit more smoothness in the joints. Okay. So once that synovial fluid is flowing through the joints, doing exercises like walking lunges and barbell back squats, which are weight-bearing exercises, are going to feel a little bit easier. Now, let's say that doesn't work, or let's say you don't have access to a leg extension machine or hamstring machine. So what do? I wouldn't take out the squats or the lunges. What I would recommend doing though is warming up with dynamic stretching. Okay. Now, if you're not sure how to do dynamic stretching, you can download my online coaching app. It's available at the App Store. And I have a whole section dedicated to dynamic stretches that I'm performing. So I have a section for lower body, upper body, every muscle group. And doing dynamic stretching before you do the weights, that can help significantly as well. And not static stretching, dynamic stretching, which is stretching with movement. Okay. Now, as far as squats and lunges, I'm a firm believer that everyone should squat and everyone should lunge. But when you're a beginner, and as you said, it can be very difficult on your joints. So instead of doing, let's say, a barbell back squat, you could do a ball wall squat. Right. Now that's going to allow a lot more range of motion for you without putting additional strain onto patella and the meniscus because your lower back, your lumbar region is going to be supported. Okay. As far as lunges are concerned, rather than doing, let's say, walking lunges, you might be able to do an exercise, let's say a static lunge, right? Or an elevation or depression lunge, which are also exercises that you can download on my online coaching app. Okay. So there's all kinds of alternatives to doing squats and lunges. However, I wouldn't recommend taking them out. And I always tell this to beginners as well. Don't worry if your range of motion is not perfect right away. Chances are your range of motion is going to be shit when you first start working out with most exercises. Because most people are very tight, right? Especially if they're older. You get someone in the gym for the first time and they're in their 40s and they haven't done any weight training. Well, they're going to be very tight. So they're going to have some tightness in the hip flexors and the hip abductors. So doing a squat will be a little bit more challenging, right? Doing a lunge is going to be definitely more difficult than doing, let's say, a leg extension on a machine. But you want to do those exercises. They're important, okay? They're going to help build a foundation to help grow your legs, right? So you can build that solid, lean, dense muscle that I've talked about in the past. So I wouldn't say stop doing lunges or squats. I would just modify the exercises, warm up accordingly, and don't get too caught up on range of motion right away. So what I mean by that is if you are doing a walking lunge and you can't bring your back knee to the floor, don't worry right away. And I always tell this to new clients, I'm like, it will come. We're not going to force it. It will come. And some people, it comes within 2-3 weeks. Some people, it comes within 2 to 3 months, but it does eventually come. It does eventually happen. Okay. So as long as you're continuing to do your weights, you will create more mobility and more flexibility in those joints. If you want to speed up the process, my recommendation, book in a few yoga and Pilates classes. That will definitely help loosen your hip flexors up, loosen your overall, your patella, your meniscus, your rotator cuffs, all your joints. Okay. So yoga and Pilates are very beneficial in addition to weight training. That can help. All right. Okay. Nick, how do you prevent stress and comfort eating from happening? I know the main reason I'm not losing weight is because of my diet. I need to get better control and have better discipline, but don't know how to do this. In my experience, the best way to do this is eat smaller meals throughout the day. It really helps. Here's the thing. A lot of people, like you said, they do eat for comfort and they do eat because they're stressed. But if you're having smaller meals throughout the day, what happens is you're feeling full. So even if you are stressed, you're not going to just go to food. This I find works with everyone I've worked with in the past who definitely are what I call emotional eaters. So they eat when they're stressed, they eat when they're happy, they eat for comfort, and so I always tell people, I want you to eat even when you're not hungry. And this is important because what I find works with people who are emotional eaters is when they have smaller, more frequent meals throughout the day, they're less likely to binge and they have more discipline and control with their diet because it's not just eating sporadic of skipping breakfast, skipping lunch, and having your first meal at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then once you had that first meal, and I mentioned this last week on the channel, your metabolism's revved up and now you're craving more food because your blood sugar levels have spiked and your insulin levels have dropped. So now what do you start doing? You're ravenous. You start looking for more food, more carbs, right? And you need that energy source. So you probably look for simple carbs, simple sugars. And that creates a very vicious cycle for someone who's trying to lose weight, okay? Or even if you're not trying to lose weight and just trying to eat a more clean, healthy diet, right? Sporadic eating is not recommended, okay? So that's why I find having smaller, more frequent meals placed throughout the day really helps with keeping your blood sugar level and your insulin levels stabilized, okay? And that will help when you're feeling stressed or when you're feeling sad or when you're feeling even just want comfort food. It does make a difference because most people go to these foods. It's not necessarily because they're stressed or sad. Like, yes, that plays a role, but it's also because they've associated that feeling with food. That food's going to make them feel better. But if you already have the food in you and you already are feeling full, you're not going to be looking for that as a vice. So that's my recommendation. Have smaller, more frequent meals throughout the day. And also that helps you too, because psychologically, you're going to be fed in the next 2-3 hours. I eat every 2-3 hours, so I'm never binging on anything. So I'm like, well, I'm going to eat again in 2 hours anyway. So why am I going to binge on this meal? Right. So that works. And also I always find when people do things like that, it allows them just to be more strict, not just with their diet, but also their lifestyle, more disciplined with their sleep patterns, more disciplined with their workout programs. Because if you're disciplined with your diet, it translates to other areas of your life. Okay. So that's my recommendation. Smaller, more frequent meals help stabilize your blood sugar levels, your insulin levels, and that should help when you feel like, you're going to binge or you're going to overeat due to stress levels, sadness, or comfort. It works. Okay. Okay. Nick, how can I stop myself from talking myself out of working out? I've fallen into a really bad habit of skipping my workouts due to work, fatigue, and busy lifestyle. Yeah, very common, right? And without a doubt, this is one of the most common reasons why people hire personal trainers, because hiring a personal trainer helps hold you accountable, right? If you're paying anywhere from $80 to $150 for a session, chances are you're not going to miss that session because you're going to be charged, right? Especially if you don't give 24 hours notice. So that's why a lot of people have personal trainers, because not only does it help keep them motivated, but it helps keep them accountable, right? So they schedule in their workout like it's a dentist appointment or a doctor's appointment or something that they are paying for that they can't get out of. So that's one way I would recommend is if you're finding that you're talking yourself out of your workouts, hire a personal trainer. Second thing you could do is if you can't afford to work with a personal trainer, join a group class, right? That's another way to hold you accountable because again, you're spending money to go somewhere, right? So that's another way you can do it. Again, even if you don't want to work in a group class, my recommendation, find someone that you can train with, a friend or family member, someone who's going to hold you accountable. There were many times in the past when I would be training for shows, and I found that having a training partner made a huge difference because there were tons of workouts or cardio sessions that I did not want to do. But I did not want to let down my training partner who was waiting at the gym for me, because that person had worked around their schedule to make sure that they could fit my schedule, right? So I don't want to let them down. So even though I don't want to be at the gym, I'd still force myself to go to the gym. Okay. And another thing too is that if you're someone who just likes to work it on your own, you don't want to have a training partner, you don't want to have a personal trainer, you don't want to work in a small group class, then you got to think to yourself, whenever you're talking yourself out of working out, just remind yourself, is this going to help me get any closer to my goals? Right? It's not. So for every workout you miss, you're going one step backwards, right? As opposed to one step forward. So that's one thing I always remind myself too, is that, yeah, I could take today off, but do I really need to take today off? Am I tired or am I just feeling lazy? And those are like questions you have to be honest with yourself. Because a lot of times people will justify and say, oh, I've had a really busy day at work today. Who cares? We all have busy days at work. You'll feel better once you start moving. I know I always tell clients when they come in after a long day of work, I'm like, I know you're tired, but after 10, 15 minutes, I guarantee you're going to start feeling more energized. And they always are more energized. Because as soon as they start working out, lifting the weights, that synovial fluid starts going, the testosterone starts to get flowing, their adrenaline starts rising, then they start getting re-energized. So even the most tired of days, most people come into the gym and they feel the best. They're the best workouts. So that's what my recommendation is. Ask yourself, is skipping this workout going to get me any closer to my goals, or am I going to go further back from my goals? And if that doesn't work, sign up with a personal trainer, join a group class, or train with a friend or family member that will hold you accountable not to miss your workouts and not to talk yourself out of missing your workouts. All right. Two more questions. Okay. Nick, how can I make my arms bigger? I train them 3 times a week and do 20 sets for my biceps and 20 sets for my triceps for each workout. Okay, so you're doing your biceps with 60 sets a week and triceps 60 sets a week. No wonder they won't grow. You're overtraining them. Okay. Uh, you don't need to be training your arms 3 times a week. Okay. If you're training your arms with high volume, not 60 sets for each muscle group, but high volume as let's say 20 sets for your biceps and 20 sets for your triceps, that should be more than enough. Okay. So my recommendation would scale those 3 times a week workouts down to just once a week. And I know that might seem counterproductive, but I promise you it works, because if you overtrain the muscle group, it won't grow. Okay. And I just talked about this earlier on another question, is that I truly believe that you can work out. If you want to work out 6, 7 days a week, you can, but not do the same thing. So you wouldn't do your arms 3 days a week. You might do your arms once and maybe every so often on a rotation, maybe twice a week, but once is more than enough. Okay. Again, it comes down to stimulating the muscle group, not annihilating the muscle group. So a good way to stimulate your biceps and your triceps is to try supersetting the two muscle groups. Genetically, I've never had the best arms, but I found that when I started supersetting my biceps with my triceps, they really started to grow. And not only did they grow, they actually became more defined, right? Which to me is more important. It's not just to have big arms, but I always wanted to have defined arms. I don't just want to have big, bulky arms. I want to have arms where I can see the veins in them, right? That's what the look I like. So how can I do that? Well, supersets work, high volume, drop sets, all these things to challenge the muscle to grow, force it to grow. Not necessarily lifting ridiculously heavy weights because you don't want to tear your bicep or your tricep, which by the way are very easy to tear. They're smaller muscle groups. Smaller muscle groups are very easy to tear. Bicep tears are very common. So you don't need to train with ridiculous weights to grow your arms. You just, again, have to approach your workouts methodically. You have to think intelligently. And my recommendation when training arms, superset your biceps with your triceps. Keep it to 4 sets per muscle group, right? Or 4 sets per exercise, I should say. My recommendation is 20, maybe 25 sets, but that's max for each muscle group, biceps, triceps, and that's more than enough. You don't need to do any more than that. In addition, I'd throw drop sets in on every exercise, okay? And again, see what that does for your muscles, because I guarantee that's going to really help add on at least an inch, maybe 2 inches to your biceps and triceps. Don't forget too, and a lot of guys forget this, but the arm is mostly tricep, not bicep. So a lot of guys neglect their triceps and spend more time on their biceps. That's a huge mistake. You should actually be doing both with the same amount of volume, in my opinion, but you cannot neglect your triceps. Okay. A lot of guys love doing curls, but you only see them do 1 or 2 press down movements. You have to remember your triceps have 3 heads, your biceps have 2 heads. So you should be doing, in my opinion, at least 5 exercises for your arms. Okay. And at 4 sets each, that's going to be 20 sets. With drop sets, that's going to be 25 sets. Okay. So that's the minimum. I recommend usually that 25 to 40 sets for the week. Okay. And because don't forget, your biceps and triceps are going to be hit indirectly when you do exercises like chest, bench press, you're working your triceps, right? When you do rows, you're working your biceps. No, you're not working them directly, but they're what we call your synergist muscle groups. They're assisting in the pull, they're assisting in the push. So therefore they are being worked. Okay. So there's no reason to be training your arms 3 times a week. That's why they're not growing. Take them down to once a week. Do what I recommend. High volume in the workout. Superset, add some drop sets in, throw in a few giant sets, circuit train, watch them grow. Okay. And obviously eat, sleep, and repeat. All right. Last question. Nick, my girlfriend has put on quite a bit of weight over the past year. She doesn't exercise or take care of herself. I'm finding myself less attracted to her physically now because of this. I work out 6 times a week and watch what I eat. I feel like an ass, but I don't know if I can continue to stay with her if she keeps going down this destructive path with her health. What should I do? I would tell her straight up. I mean, again, I think sometimes people need to hear, I mentioned this last week, the hard truth. If your significant other is, never mind the weight gain, but what she's doing to her health, if she's doing, like, following a poor diet, not exercising, living a sedentary lifestyle, take the aesthetics out of it for a second and just think internally what that's doing to her health. So I would express my concern as, hey, what's happening here? You're not taking care of yourself. I don't want to have to be taking care of you in 5, 10 years from now because you've let your health go to shit. Express your concerns. And I don't think, this is my own personal opinion, I don't think it makes you an ass to tell your partner that you're letting yourself go. I'm not as physically attracted to you as I was a few years ago. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think it's important that it's even more important, I think, that if you are in a relationship, you should try to be staying in the best of shape for your partner and look the best for your partner and not let yourself go. I think that should be a motivating factor for people to go to the gym. You want to be in the best shape for the person that you're with, right? Also for yourself, but I think that's so important. I never understood this couples that let themselves go. They just get comfortable. I think it's just like giving up. So if anything, if I'm in a relationship, I want to look better for the person I'm with, not worse. So I would just tell them, but that's me. And regardless if that makes me sound like an ass, then I'm an ass. But I want someone to tell me and say, hey, Nick, you know what? Yeah, you notice you're getting a little soft. You're getting some love handles on you. What's going on here? Are you just giving up? I'm like, you know what? You're right. what am I doing? Why am I eating this food? Why am I not going to the gym? Right? Why am I staying up and drinking all night? Like, what am I doing here? So I think as a partner, it's your job to tell your significant other, hey, I'm worried. I'm not just worried about how you look, but I'm worried about what's going to happen to you down the line. Because 9 times out of 10, when someone is not taking care of their health, they're not exercising regularly, they're not following a clean diet, they're going to have health issues down the road. Very rarely do people escape not having any health issues who've lived a very sedentary lifestyle. Something usually happens, right? So I would express my concern. And again, I would tell them that you're feeling less attracted to them because they're not taking care of themselves physically. I think honesty really is the best policy when it comes to stuff like that. And if I was with someone and I was letting myself go, I would want that person to tell me and call me on it and say, what's going on? Right? What do we need to do to get you back in the gym? What do we need you to do to get you back on a plan with a diet and watch what you're eating, exercising regularly, living a better lifestyle? Excuse me. Anyway, that's my recommendation. Anyway, this episode will be going up on Monday, April the 15th. As a reminder, if you do have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you're taking, not taking, considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thank you for joining my online coaching app. Thank you for supporting our in-house personal training business here in Vancouver, British Columbia. And remember, if you'd like any information on any of our personal training services, please feel free to contact me anytime, nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or DM me on Instagram, @fitcosgrove_. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next week. Bye for now.